Hello friends, welcome to my channel, and today I will teach you all this chapter named Light and Shadows. You can see. So in this chapter we will get to learn classify the objects as luminous or non-luminous objects, categorize materials as transparent, translucent and opaque, demonstrate that light travels in straight lines, explain how shadows are formed, list the conditions necessary for the formation of shadows, explain rotation and revolution of the earth, show how day and night are caused, explain eclipses. So at first we will read what are sources of light. So there are two sources of light: natural sources of light and artificial sources of light. So natural sources of light are the source of light that naturally gives out light, is called natural sources of light. Means they emit their own light in nature, are called natural sources of light, like the sun, firefly, stars, etc. Now what are artificial sources of light? Sources of light which emit light but have been created by humans are called artificial sources of light. Next we will read what are luminous and non-luminous objects. So luminous objects are the objects that emit or give out their own light. So here there is no difference of natural source or artificial source. It can also be sun, it can also be star, it can also be a candle, it can also be a tube light, anything. Okay, but it has to be luminous, it has to give out their own light. And what are non-luminous objects? The objects that do not emit or give out their own light are called non-luminous objects. For example, stones, plants, table, chair, etc. Now we will classify the objects into transparent, translucent and opaque objects. So here is a chart given. So we have to read this chart. Transparent, translucent and opaque. Transparent. Light falling on transparent object passes through. Hence we can see through these objects clearly. As you can see, examples are air, water, clear plastic sheet, glass. But a mirror will not be a transparent object because on its another side the light cannot pass. Okay, so that is why the mirror will not be in the example of transparent object, it will be in the example of opaque object. Next, translucent object. Only part of the light falling on translucent objects passes through. Means only partial part of light falls on the object passes through. Hence we can see but not clearly through the objects. Examples are butter paper, a thin handkerchief, a thin sheet of paper, frosted glass, etc. Okay, now opaque objects. Light falling on opaque objects does not pass through. Hence we cannot see through these objects. Like our hand, it is an opaque object. We can't see what's at that side, so it is an opaque object. Examples are books, chairs, soil, trees, walls, etc. Now this is one stop and check exercise. We have to just classify that they are transparent, translucent or opaque. Now we are here to learn that we can prove that light travels in straight line. Okay, so now what is a ray? A very narrow and thin line of light is called a ray. So when we turn on the flashlight, like here the candle, like this, when we turn on our flashlight or torchlight, then you will see a collection of rays is coming out of there and it is forming a light. It is called a beam. A collection of rays is called a beam, and in that beam each single thin and narrow line of light is called a ray. Now we will notice that rays travel in straight line. Rays travel in straight line means light travel in straight line. So the property by which light travels in straight lines is called rectilinear propagation of light. So what is rectilinear propagation of light? The property by which light travels in straight lines is called rectilinear propagation of light. Next, we will learn about shadows. So what is a shadow? As I showed, if you keep your hand like an opaque object, you can see a black spot under my hand. That is a shadow. The black spot that when it is formed, an opaque object blocks the path of the light, and a black spot appears. This black spot is known as shadow. The shadow does not have any color, or it does not have any details of the body or any object. As I told, a shadow is formed when an object blocks the path of light. Now, conditions for the formation of shadows. To form a shadow, we need a source of light, an object blocking the path of light, which means an opaque object, a screen for the shadow to be cast on. Like this, think that this is the screen and this is the opaque object, and right now I'm doing with the help of flashlight, so that is the source of light. So now if I do like this, it is blocking the path of the light and it is forming a black spot which is called shadow, like this. Now characteristics of shadow. A shadow is formed on the side opposite to the light. It will not form on the same side as the source of the light, but it will form on the opposite side. Only the outline of the object is seen, not details. As I told, the color of the shadow is always dark. It is not black, but it is dark. Okay, whatever the color of the object may be. The size of the shadow depends on the size of the object and light source, distance between object and light source, distance between object and screen. Opaque object, like here, this one, I am doing it very close, so the shadow is much more thick and it is much more small. So this is what they are trying to explain. Now we are going to the next point. Opaque objects from darker shadows, translucent from faint and unclear shadows, transparent objects do not form shadows since they do not block light. Okay, understood? Now today we have done up to this much. Come in part 2 to see the shadows formed at different times, movements of the earth rotation and revolution, and eclipses, the solar eclipse and lunar eclipse. Bye bye. See you in my part 2.